Hey guys, Zane here with another one take review, and today I want to talk about The Boatman's Call by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. The Boatman's Call holds a very peculiar place within the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds discography, as the amount of presence that is placed on Nick Cave over the rest of the Bad Seeds here would make this, you could even argue, the first technical Nick Cave solo album, at least how it's presented anyway. I mean, obviously the rest of the band are still here, but it's this sort of importance of Cave himself on the Boatman's Call that has made this record both incredibly well loved and very polarizing within the realm of his fanbase. Although I do consider myself a great big fan of the Boatman's Call and the entire aesthetic that does surround it, I will admit that this is a major vessel for Nick Cave himself over the Bad Seeds, as he does take center stage on his own with his vocals and piano, while the Bad Seeds and the rest of the band are just kind of left off to the side stage, if you could say, to continue that metaphor, for just a more attentive listener to digest upon multiple listenings. The Boatman's Call also sees Cave begin to go into a more dark and moody tone in his voice, which is something that was the antithesis of the prior album, Murder Ballads, as well as something that wouldn't be totally reversed until 2008's Dig Lazarus Dig. Rather than delivering line after line in a chaotic tone of voice that's comparable to the baritone of Frank Sinatra, mixed with your average industrial vocalist, I'm looking at you, Genesis Peorge of Throbbing Gristle fame. Cave embraces the somber romanticism of a lot of his more accessible influences. Basically, think more Balladeer and less Birthday Party, because God knows that the Birthday Party as a band were the total opposite of what is being done on the Boatman's Call. Indeed, this change in vocal delivery would not only mark a change in Cave as a performer, but Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds as an entire collective, as they would just begin to go in a direction quite opposite of their artsy punk blues roots. However, that being said, I do think that The Boatman's Call is the record that most directly shines on the metamorphosis of Cave in particular as a performer and artist. That isn't to say the Bad Seeds aren't here. I mean, this is obviously a Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds album. It's just that they're presented in a very subtle and nonchalant way. Cuts like Brompton Oratory are based around very low-key ambience that really makes sort of more of an atmosphere than an actual instrumental piece of music per se. It's not really something that you would listen to and be like, oh man, I gotta find sheet music for that or something like that. But it does build its own little universe and really more support Cave than anything. Longtime Bad Seeds member Mick Harvey is especially invaluable, as his periodic appearances on the Boatman's Call with a variety of string and key-based instruments definitely add a bit of flavor to each track that they're paired with, even if it's not the most obvious thing in the world. Elsewhere, bassist Martin P. Casey provides a solid bass line on the track West Country Girl, which has a very nice thump to it that makes the track stand out on an already viciously consistent track list. The Boatman's Call is obviously a ship that is captained by Nick Cave. That being said, the Bad Seeds do act as a very dedicated and strong and necessary crew. The Boatman's Call is also lyrically strong, especially when put into the context of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds' discography. Being the band's primary songwriter for, the Bad Seeds, and considering the Bad Seeds are a band that's so reliant on strong songwriting, any blemishes or general problems that come with Nick Cave's songwriting end up ultimately, for the most part at least, steering the Bad Seeds' song-to-song, album-to-album quality. If you want proof of that, just look at the fact that people really don't like Nocturama, and while I don't think it's a terrible album by any means, a lot of people absolutely despise it because it simply just isn't that strong lyrically. Nonetheless, even in his best moments, Nick Cave still has a kind of bad habit of just odd word choice or awkward phrasing in his lyrics that really does prevent me from calling him one of the greatest songwriters to ever grace alternative music, just barely. Perhaps it's his choice to utilize more personal subject matter on the Boatman's Call, but I do feel like the majority of that aforementioned clunkiness is nullified by a sense of general poetic honesty. The chilling songwriting on songs like Idiot Prayer is not only beautiful, but also extremely dramatic, and would only be matched by that dramaticism on future Cave songs like Oh Children and Oh My Lord. Meanwhile, topics of love of ambiguous origin found on songs like the rightfully fan favorite Into My Arms are handled masterfully, frankly. The very personal songwriting that is found on the Boatman's Call works towards the album's overall theme of just emotional bareness. Being a songwriter as Cave and a band like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, who often worked through a veil of storytelling and narrative songs or otherwise hypothetical lyricism, the Boatman's Call was a major change in pace circa 1997. Almost the entirety of the record is confirmed to be based around very personal, important individuals within Cave's life at the time, and those theorized or confirmed to have been mentioned at some point in one song or another include, but aren't limited to, people like ex-girlfriend and legendary alternative rock musician PJ Harvey, as well as his son Luke Cave. The amount of intimacy that comes from Cave's one-on-one performance style here, mixed with this very personal and just detailed almost lyricism, should be kind of obvious. If you were wondering what the answer was, it's a lot. It's a very intimate album. Anyways. And while I would never firmly say that The Boatman's Call is my favorite overall Bad Seeds record, especially not when Let Love In and No More Shall We Part exist, I will say that The Boatman's Call is definitely arguable to be the most personal and live-sounding studio album from the Bad Seeds. Overall, The Boatman's Call is a understandably equally loved and hated record, and I do think that this album could have easily been a dreadfully boring listen that lost all of the endearing and remarkable qualities about their previous records up to this point. And while The Boatman's Call does admittedly ditch virtually every possible conceivable idea that was presented on every previous Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds album up to this point, it really does come across as a very personal, intimate, and well thought out, very meticulously put together record that is quite beautiful for the most part, actually, which is why I'm going to give The Boatman's Call 4.5 stars out of 5. I personally think it belongs on the higher end of the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds quality scale, rankings, whatever you could say. And that's definitely an achievement, considering I personally don't believe that Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds ever put out a bad album. And I'm pretty sure that if you ask most of the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds fan base, they'll say that the only bad album they ever put out was Nocturama. And I mean, hey, I liked Nocturama. But ignoring my opinions and everything like that, I'm going to give this album 4.5 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.